Did you know the person we consider to be the first computer programmer was actually a woman? Her name was Ada Lovelace. I realized that I never filmed from this angle in my filming studio, and it's such a nice little wall, so I wanted to do the video over here today. We love it. All the corners of my filming studio are supposed to be aesthetic. Anyhow. Ada Lovelace is the only legitimate daughter of the famous romantic poet Lord Byron and his wife Annabella. As you may know, thanks to his many scandalous affairs and other weird things he did that were considered peculiar by English society, Lord Byron had a bit of a bad boy status, and as you can imagine, didn't get along real well with his wife, so they separated when Ada was only 5 weeks old, and Ada would never see her father for the rest of her life, even though Lord Byron would actually, like, some of his poems are about his daughter, never saw each other for the rest of his life. And Annabella was so bent on making sure that Ada turned out nothing like her father that she gave her a lot of math and science classes to do. That was rare for women at the time. This is the 1800s. Women are not, like, almost to the Victorian age. Women were typically not given a math and science education, but Annabella was like, my daughter will not be a poet. She will not be creative. She will not be anything like her father. She's going to be a mathematician or a scientist. And that's what happened. Ada got a lot of science and math tutors, including Mary Somerville, who I mentioned in my 31 Days Women Scientist outfits, and she showed a really strong aptitude for math and science. At the age of 12, she became really interested in flying, trying to study birds and their anatomy to figure out how to fly, even wrote a book called Flyology. Isn't that, like, such a 12-year-old thing to do? At the age of 20, Ada married Lord William the 8th Baron, King Baron, all those English titles are weird, and he would eventually become the Earl of Lovelace, which is where Lady Lovelace comes from. That's where Ada got her title, Ada Lovelace, lovely Lady Lovelace. And her husband, actually, instead of being like, no, you can't study math and science anymore, actually encouraged her in her scientific and mathematical pursuits, and even encouraged her when Ada herself wanted to give up. So, we support. It's always good to have somebody in your corner to support you when you are thinking about giving up on something yourself. The relationship that would most define Ada Lovelace's life would be her relationship with Charles Babbage, another English inventor and mathematician. He invented early computers, or at least proposed the invention of them. He wasn't really good at getting them funded or ever actually finishing his projects, but he was really good at proposing them. And his latest proposal was something for what he called the analytical engine. The analytical engine was basically like a calculator we would use today. It could perform mathematical functions and operations that people no longer needed to do by hand, and it could also be coded by information stored on these punch cards, which was a system that was being used at the same time in weaving on these really fancy looms to create really fancy designs in weaving. And I actually made a video on how looms are responsible for the history of computer coding, so you should go check that out. I think I made that like last summer. It's a really fun video. So this was the analytical engine, but it was all purely theoretical. It was in the designs and plans, but it hadn't come into, it hadn't been built. Whether or not it could be built, but it hadn't even been built yet, and Ada Lovelace was so interested in this. She and Charles Babbage met several times in person, kept up a very lengthy correspondence because those people back then were real good at learning letters, and started taking notes about the analytical engine. Charles Babbage actually proposed his analytical engine to the Italian government. Somebody in the audience took that presentation and wrote it down in French, and Ada Lovelace decided that she would take the French translation of the Italian government presentation of the analytical engine and turn that into English. So she translated Charles Babbage's presentation from French to English, but that's not all she did. She also added so many of her own notes to that translation about what she thought about the analytical engine that it became 3 times its original length. So she wrote like the length of the translation and then 2 more times that in her notes alone. Meaning most of that translation was Ada Lovelace's own work. And in that, she included a program or a method by which the analytical engine could calculate something called Bernoulli numbers. This was the first ever algorithm written for a machine. This was what we consider to be the first computer program, and thus Ada Lovelace is the first computer programmer. Charles Babbage saw his analytical engine as kind of more like a calculator. It could do what numbers we put into it, and we could program it to do that, but it wouldn't necessarily ever become something greater than that. Ada Lovelace, in her notes within that translation, saw it as something that could be programmed, coded, something that could be applied to calculations that humans were not able to do yet. Calculations that humans obviously had to know how to do because the computer couldn't invent things that we ourselves did not know how to do, but calculations that up until that point in time, humans were just not able to do mathematically by hand and get accurate enough results. So this opened a huge field in computer programming, even if the analytical engine hadn't actually been invented yet. And because it never actually got invented, and Ada Lovelace died at the age of 36 from uterine cancer, she kind of got lost a little bit in history until about the 1950s, when you had more of the creation of actual computers. You had Alan Turing, and you had other people rediscover her notes and discover all of these ideas she had that people started to incorporate in computers. Now we have computers today doing things that we never even dreamed of, and with AI, we have it making up stuff that we kind of didn't know how to do in the first place, which is crazy. One of the things that stands out the most to me from Ada Lovelace's story is the fact that she got that math and science education because her mom was trying to make her not creative or not poetic. But it was thanks to Ada's kind of maybe natural poetic nature or ability to think creatively and abstractly that she could see beyond the original function for the analytical engine and turn it into what we know more today as the computer. So never underestimate the power of creativity, especially in math and science fields. That's the life of Ada Lovelace, the first computer programmer. I think she's so cool, and all of her portraits, she just looks so fancy. I actually dressed up as her 1 year for Halloween. It was a great costume. And we also celebrate Ada Lovelace Day on the second Tuesday of October, I believe. It's just a general celebration of women in STEM. So thank you so much, Ada Lovelace, for your amazing life and amazing work. And I'm glad we have computers today. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Like it, share it, subscribe to my channel, tell your friends about it. Be sure to check out my Buy Me a Coffee page if you want to support me and my channel. And as always, keep it sciencey! Did you